What do you want, Dixie? Well, you just want some nubbins? Hi, this is Neil's on Dynasty. Please like, share, and subscribe. Gandalf insists. Buy some silver and some platinum. Because Shadow insists. Be kind, helpful, and grateful. Like Dixie and Harley. But that's not what this is about. It's never what this is about. I just start that off because I love my cats. And you guys should love animals as well. And if you don't, oh well. Spay and neuter your pets and any other animals in your area that are stray or feral. Spay and neuter them. No reason for their children to suffer. But anyhow, that's not what this is about. This is about Africa and possibly France and a whole bunch of other cool stuff.
Colonial powers have a history of interfering in a country's national matters subtly, yet so bluntly. They do so by putting a president who works more for their interests than those of his own people. As long as he does the job, he stays as the president, enjoying wealth and luxury. However, when he decides he should get rid of the mastermind, he is replaced immediately. It's because he is part of a game where betrayal means getting betrayed yourself. Hence, we see coups in African countries, most of which are triggered by European powers.
Okay, disclaimer here. This guy's only talking about maybe the past 200, 300 years of African history where the European powers have and colonial people have interfered in Africa. But it took them about 50 to 100 years to be able to infiltrate into Africa because Africans were doing it to themselves. Except for they didn't do the resources of mining. They did the resources of humans, which is the history of humanity, and that's slavery. So one could put the point out that colonialism coming in has pretty much dwindled down the natural state of Africans wanting to enslave other tribes and trade in human flesh rather than natural resources because they didn't have the technology to dig for the natural resources. So, things evolve, people blame, and that's cool. You can blame. Yes, they are responsible for what these people are saying, but they wouldn't have been better off if they hadn't come because they'd probably be slaves. So there's more to the story than this, and I can understand the hatred to colonialism and stuff like that, and that's cool. I mean, they have a right to, as long as they don't discount the rest of their history. The rest of their history. And after colonialism breaks apart and they get the Western nations and all that out, they'll have to get the Eastern nations like China and Russia out. And then once they get China and Russia out, they're going to go back to tribal warfare because that's the history of Africa before colonialism. But back to the story.
Since they trained their former colonies' military, they had soldiers and generals who were loyal to them. But don't forget that they won't initiate a coup for as long as their orders are being carried out. Back in 2022, Ibrahim Traoré himself staged a coup and became the head of the state and supreme leader of the military. This coup was different because Ibrahim took power from the hands of France and initiated policies which were beneficial for the people.
And that's cool.
This created a gap between what he was doing and what France wanted. It was obvious that a coup might come, replacing Ibrahim and instilling either a president or a military commander loyal to France. This could never be a smooth process as Ibrahim was a military commander. Excess force was required, which meant buying powerful generals in Burkina Faso's army. When everything was in place, a coup was launched in September 2023, which failed. The big question now is, who's pulling the strings behind this covert operation? Whether there was France behind it, or some military officers independently decided to overthrow Ibrahim. On Friday, September 8th, the plot unraveled when 3 soldiers in Burkina Faso were apprehended and charged
lung problems. Try adding this
sinister conspiracy against the junta, the country's military regime. This confidential operation came to light following a tip-off received by investigators last month. It was reported that soldiers, both current and former, with intelligence backgrounds, were conducting surveillance on residences and other strategic locations used by prominent figures within the junta, including Captain Ibrahim Traore. Their ultimate goal was to destabilize the transition, a term referring to the interim military rule that precedes promised elections. As the investigation progressed, the three individuals were arrested and ordered to be detained by an examining magistrate. They now face plenty of charges, including involvement in a military plot, contravening military orders, engaging in criminal association, and jeopardizing state security. These grave accusations were officially made by military prosecutor Major Alphonse Zoma in a statement. The three individuals at the center of this murky plot have been identified as Warrant Officer Wind, Sergeant Bryce Ismail Ramday, and former Corporal Samidar. Interestingly, these same individuals had a previous conviction back in 2015 for their involvement in another plot against the state. It seems they're intent on leaving their mark on history. For those unfamiliar with Captain Ibrahim Traore, he's been at the top of Burkina Faso since September 30th, 2022. Traore rose to power by toppling Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, who had ousted Burkina Faso's elected president, Roch-Marc Christian Cabaret, just over 8 months prior. Traore's military background includes serving as a captain in the Cobra Special Forces Unit, where he actively participated in conflicts such as the Mali War, the Islamic insurgency, and Burkina Faso's coup d'etat in January 2022 and September 2022. Many supporters of the January coup became disillusioned with the leadership of Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, who led the junta, primarily due to his perceived inability to effectively combat the jihadist insurgency. Traore later stated that he and fellow officers initially attempted to convince Damiba to refocus on addressing the rebellion. However, they ultimately decided to oust him, as they believed his ambitions were straying from their original goals. The dissatisfaction was particularly pronounced among younger officers who had been actively engaged in frontline battles against the insurgents. The coup, which unfolded on September 30th, received backing from the Cobra unit during its execution. Immediately following the coup, Traore declared himself the new leader of the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration. By October 6, 2022, he had also assumed the role of interim president, holding the titles of head of state and supreme head of the armed forces. At just 34 years old, Traore holds the distinction of being the world's youngest serving president. His tenure began on October 6, 2022, as interim president and officially on September 30th, 2022, as the incumbent president. Since taking office, Traore has made his voice heard on the international stage. His speech at the Russia-Africa Summit in July 2023 garnered attention and applause. He criticized African heads of state who aligned themselves with imperialists, accusing them of neglecting the needs of their people and undermining human rights. He urged African leaders to break free from the puppeteer strings of foreign powers. This summit saw the participation of delegations from 49 African countries, including 17 heads of state. This event marked a crucial juncture in the ongoing shift towards multipolarization, signifying the Global South's move away from Western, US-centric hegemonic dominance. Traore's address highlighted a call to action, highlighting key issues faced by Africa. Traore talked about the shared history of Africa and Russia, both having made significant sacrifices during World War II to defeat Nazism. That's where he showed the West his leanings toward Russia, creating shockwaves. He lamented that this history is often overlooked in global narratives. The central theme of Traore's speech revolved around questioning the paradox of Africa's abundant natural resources and yet being the continent with the highest poverty levels and hunger. He raised concerns about African heads of state, seeking aid from other nations, and the desperation of African youth crossing perilous waters to reach Europe. Traore envisioned a future where Africa no longer sees its people forced to cross oceans, but instead offers them opportunities within the continent. Praising President Vladimir Putin's commitment to providing grain to Africa, Traore saw it as a message for African leaders to prioritize self-sufficiency in food production. He stressed the importance of building strong relations with Russia to meet the needs of African populations. When France came to know about this, it was rattled because the entire West did not want any country to ally with Russia. But when a former French colony, whom they have been ruling until the recent past, allies with Russia, it shows how weak France has become. Burkina Faso, a nation in the troubled Sahel region, has endured significant instability since gaining independence from France in 1960, when it was known as the Republic of Upper Volta. The recent coup attempt has been attributed to 3 soldiers, including a lieutenant colonel named Emmanuel Zamgrana, but they would have never attempted a coup on their own. Certainly, someone was at their back. On Thursday, September 7th, 2023, Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, addressed the public regarding the recent attempted coup against his government. He confirmed reports from local media that certain elements within the army had indeed sought to seize power. This revelation came in the wake of speculation that began over the weekend, fueled by rumors circulating on social media platforms regarding a coup attempt against the transitional government. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video. In response to these events, on Sunday night and Monday, demonstrators identifying themselves as supporters of Ibrahim Traoré gathered in the capital, Ouagadougou, to protest against the alleged coup. During this gathering, Captain Traoré addressed civil society organizations and religious leaders, revealing that he was aware of the identities of the coup plotters. President Traoré also appealed for the support of all citizens, as he acknowledged the existence of forces attempting to sabotage the government's efforts and erode morale. He stressed the importance of vigilance and readiness among the participants, emphasizing that the path to achieving democratic governance would be fraught with challenges. At this moment, everyone knows who's behind the coup. It's the very country that has been benefiting from Burkina Faso, but can no longer do to Ibrahim Traoré. Since France does not want to reveal its direct involvement, it's hiring soldiers whose loyalties can be bought. Traoré himself said that the distribution of funds is being used as a tool to encourage certain individuals to destabilize the government. Traoré knows without a fraction of a doubt that France is the one pulling the string of the former and on-duty soldiers, forcing them to revolt. In the aftermath of the coup d'etat, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in an interview broadcast on Wednesday evening by radio television Dubakina, clarified his stance towards France. He knew that France was scared of him, so he tried to create an air of trust. He said that Burkina Faso does not view the French people as enemies, but rather considers the policies of the French government in Africa an issue. He highlighted the importance of mutual respect between states and called for a comprehensive review of cooperation agreements. Although he did not explicitly name France, he criticized the practice of installing leaders in newly independent states, which hindered their development. Traoré also hinted at the presence of other imperialist powers aside from France. Captain Ibrahim Traoré questioned the effectiveness of the French military presence in Burkina Faso in the fight against jihadists. In other words, he tried saying that the French military stationed in Burkina Faso was not to fight the jihadists, but to ensure that a coup could be carried out if any leader went against French policies. Hence, back in January, he ordered the French military to leave Burkina Faso and be of some use in their own country. It turns out that Traoré wants Burkina Faso to have strong relationships with every country, instead of relying on only one like France. Hence, Burkina Faso's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Olivia Rawamba, expressed her country's desire to strengthen bilateral cooperation with Iran during an interview in Tehran with President Ibrahim Raisi. Burkina Faso reaffirmed its support for Niger too, which recently experienced a coup on July 26th and shares the three borders area with Mali and Niger, an area known to harbor jihadist groups. This decision came after Burkina Faso confirmed it ended the French military accord. This was one of the reasons why Burkina Faso could not have independent leaders. When they knew the French military was in Burkina Faso, who could strip him out of office, he would make decisions in favor of France. The military agreement had previously permitted French troops to combat armed groups within the country, as announced by the government. But the underlying reason was to control the president and the government. Government spokesperson Ouedraogo clarified, "We are terminating the agreement which allows French forces to be in Burkina Faso." He emphasized that this decision does not mark the end of diplomatic relations between the two countries and is a normal procedure outlined in the terms of the agreement. Ouedraogo echoed the sentiments of coup leader Traoré, who has called for Burkina Faso to take a leading role in reclaiming its territory from armed groups. He stated that both the ruling military and the entire country are determined to be the primary actors in this effort. By kicking France out of Burkina Faso, Traoré is finding new allies like Russia, the country which makes the West nervous. That's why Macron has criticized Russia for exerting a predatory influence in some African nations, as France has witnessed a reduction in its own influence. Earlier, the French army's departure from Mali coincided with the military government's decision to enlist Russian mercenaries to assist in combating armed group fighters. an action that was strongly condemned by Western countries. What Ibrahim Traore is doing is making Burkina Faso more prosperous, something which France never wanted. It wants Burkina Faso to stay paralyzed so it can regain its control over it. But that won't happen. Burkina Faso possesses significant resources, including cotton and sorghum, which are of great importance to its economy and people, highlighting the nation's potential for growth and development. The government has allocated substantial funds to foster the growth of various industries in Burkina Faso. One important initiative has been the government's commitment to advancing sorghum cultivation within the country. To achieve this, they have invested in research aimed at developing new sorghum varieties that can thrive in the local conditions. Back in 2007, the World Bank estimated that approximately 20% of Burkina Faso's total land area had the potential for agriculture. However, despite the abundance of arable land, Burkina Faso has not achieved self sufficiency in agriculture. That was because, directly or indirectly, it was made to cripple despite having resources and ability. Consequently, the government has implemented measures to modernize farming practices and boost the agricultural sector. Some of the crucial crops in Burkina Faso include cotton, maize, sorghum, and millet. Notably, sugarcane cultivation has also gained momentum among Burkina Bay farmers in recent times. Beyond agriculture, Burkina Faso boasts rich mineral resources, including gold, zinc, copper, manganese, phosphate, and limestone, produced in significant quantities. Additionally, the nation holds reserves of diamonds, bauxite, nickel, and vanadium. Gold, in particular, holds immense economic significance, with Burkina Faso ranking as the fourth largest gold producer on the African continent. Yet some of these mineral resources remain largely untapped. It's worth noting that the Western world maintains a keen interest in Africa due to its status as a major producer of critical metals and minerals, including uranium for nuclear energy, platinum for various applications, nickel used in stainless steel, magnets, coins, and batteries, as well as other minerals such as bauxite and cobalt. From now on, Burkina Faso will use these resources for its own benefit, unlike filling French coffers. Considering France's interest in Burkina Faso, especially under Ibrahim Traore's leadership, where he is actively striving to elevate Burkina Faso's status both nationally and within the broader African context, it's clear that France would face significant losses if it were to sever all ties with the nation. This leads to the intriguing question of whether the Western world might have had a hand in the attempted coup against Ibrahim Traore to overthrow him and dismantle his rule. Traore's independent approach to strengthening Burkina Faso's position could potentially be viewed as a threat by external powers with vested interests in the region. Hence, it becomes obvious that France might have an invisible hand in the attempted coup against Ibrahim Traore. Perhaps by using a few soldiers initially, it wanted to see whether a coup could be staged on a.
Anyhow, you get the point. This doesn't mean that prices of everything's going to go up. It's quite possible if people or countries work good, honest trade deals. As I've said in my other videos, the future will be dictated by trade and treaty agreements. You can go back in my videos and confirm I'm right, because I said this a long time ago. If we do prosperous trade agreements with this new country or new government, they seem to be more in line with our values, or what they're supposed to be here in America, of building up your people to make your country stronger. And they've got, heck, they got platinum. They got platinum. They have platinum. Well, damn. I need to look more into that country and maybe invest some myself. I'm real tempted to go over there and try and meet with some people and see about doing business with these people, because I kind of like their thought process for what they want for their country. There's nothing anti-West about it. It's pro them, which they have every right and should do, in my opinion. If every country does like whatever the name of that country was, it's Burundi or something like that. If every other country like Niger and all them follow, this world would probably be a better place. Because as you heard, Niger, which is at a Q, and this Burundi, in between those two countries and one other country, is where most of the terrorists are occupying areas and training. So if the West has done nothing and known about it. Maybe these countries, if we allow them to be independent, make their own money off of their own resources, that would end child labor, obviously, in those countries, and they could have money to fund their own militaries and get rid of their internal problems in their countries, which would take care of the problem for the reason why supposedly the Western colonial powers are there. But anyhow, that's just food for thought. This one here has been bothering me to get in my lap for the past 15 minutes. You guys have a nice day. Bye bye.